the Red Hat Enterprise Linux boot process. Boot means restarting or starting the system. So how the system starts, how this Linux system starts, and what are the steps we have. Now all the modern computer systems are complex combination of hardware and software. So starting from an undefined power down state to a running state with a graphical login prompt requires a large number of pieces of hardware and software to work together. So the following list we have, this gives a high level overview of the task involved for a physical 64-bit system booting, which is Red Hat Enterprise Linux 7. So this is the list, and this is happens what these are the steps which happens when the system boots. Now first what happened when we start the system? So the first thing it do is the power on self test. Now this is the process which do by every digital machine. It is not like it is a Linux machine. It can be any machine. So any digital machine when it starts, like we have a computer, laptop, mobile, routers, switches. So they all do what? They do the post first. Now what this post do? It is a power on self test. So it do what? It checks its own hardware. It checks the hardware and all the components, hardware components, that whether they are connected, what are connected and what is running and what is not running, what is okay and not okay. So this post is a part of every digital machine booting, and it starts with this. Every digital machine starts with this process, this step, the first step, and it do what? It checks that whether the what are the components, hardware components are there, and what components are working, and if suppose any components are not working, then it will give error and stop. It will stop, the process will stop, and you will get the error, and then your machine will not boot, will not start, and that means you are having a hardware problem. Now after the boot, after the post process, now in the post process we can't say that it is a Linux machine. It can be any machine, it can be any operating system, because here till now the operating system is not decided. Now the next step is the next step is the firmware searches. The firmware searches for the bootable device based on the order we have configured in the BIOS. So in the BIOS configuration, we configure the order for the boot. By default, it goes for the hard disk, try to get the bootable information from there, and if it is not there, then it will go for the removable drives, and then it will go for the network also to see or get the bootable information, the bootable files. Now when we have already installed the system, so what we do, we configure the boot in firmware, the boot sequence, and we configure the first boot device as a hard disk. So what happened, when the machine starts after the post, it will go to search in the hard disk and it will get the information. Now after, mostly after installation, we do what? We boot from the hard disk drive. So look for the bootable bootable partitions from the hard disk, bootable partition for the MBR, like the master boot record. Now if we want to install it, if we want to install the operating system, so what we do, we select the bootable boot from the removable drive, either from DVD, CD DVD, or from the flash, or if we want, then we can select the network also, so we can boot it from the network. But if we have installed the operating system, so mostly it will get the operating system information, bootable information from the hard disk. So it will go to the hard disk. Let's say like we have already installed it. It is not an installation, it is just a starting of the machine. So we have already installed the system, and all the information, all the installation is on the hard disk. So when the boot sequence, when it searches the boot sequence, it will check the hard disk first, and then it will do what? It will try to find the MBR from it. Now MBR means what? It is the first partition, it is the first space in the partition, in the first partition. It is called MBR, master boot record. It is actually, MBR space is what? It's a 512 byte, and it is the first sector of our hard disk where all operating systems store their bootloaders. So if we have the MBR is what? It is a master boot record, and it is actually a space in the first partition in the hard disk, the first partition we have, and that partition's first sector and the first sector, and you know the first the sector size is only 512 byte. So this is the first sector, and here all the operating system store their bootloaders, for example Linux or even Windows or any other. So they store the bootloader file here in this MBR. Now if we have UEFI boot firmware, if we are using the UEFI boot firmware, and then it will use the EFI partition for bootloader. Now if we are using the UEFI bootloader and if you are using the secure booting, so if you are using the secure booting and when you are having a UEFI boot partition, then what it will, UEFI supported firmware, then it will do what it will create, instead of MBR it will create the EFI partition, and it will store the bootloader into that EFI partition. So it depends. Now in our RHEL7 it creates the MBR and it stores the bootloader into MBR. Then if it is a EFI support, UEFI supported firmware, then it uses the EFI partition bootloader to store the bootloader file. Now in any operating system, in Windows also, you can't see the bootloader file. We cannot see. Now in Linux, because it is open source, so we know we can see the boot partition and we can see the bootable files, bootloader file also. But in Red Hat 7, now we can't see the bootloader file. If you see the RHEL7, you can see the bootloader file also. Yeah, and the size of the bootloader file is actually same 512 byte, exactly 512 byte, so that it can fit into that MBR partition, MBR space of that 512 byte. But here in Red Hat 7, because you can see it in RHEL6, but you should not do anything to that file. You should not edit the file, you should not modify the file. So it is here also. Now in RHEL7 it does not show here and we can't see that file, but it's there in that MBR. And if it is using the EFI, so it is in the EFI partition. Now that 512 bit file cannot run the whole operating system, so it redirects the system to next step. The firmware, this bootloader file's job is to redirect the system to run other things. So the third step is what? The firmware reads the bootloader and from the disk then pass control to the bootloader. So it reads the bootloader and then it will pass the control to bootloader. Now from here the bootloader will start doing the thing. Now from this step, here the system decides that whether we are having the Linux or Windows operating system. Till now we don't know that what operating system is going to boot. Now the bootloader, if we are using the Windows, so we have the Windows bootloader and it is going to boot the Windows system, and if we are having the Linux, so we will get the Linux bootloader and it is going to boot the Linux system. Now in RHEL7 we have grub2 as a bootloader. grub2 as a bootloader, then this is the by default bootloader we have. In RHEL6 we have grub1, and now it is updated version in RHEL7 and it is what? grub2. So grub2 is an advanced version of grub1. So grub1 is different and grub2 is different. In grub1 you can see the bootloader file, but here we can't see the bootloader file, and it was there in RHEL6. So from RHEL6 the RHEL7 we have a lot of different in boot loading. So it boots differently, completely differently than the RHEL6, because RHEL6 was using grub1. Now if you go more older than the RHEL6, if you go to RHEL5, then it has bootloader, it has a grub bootloader, but it will give you the option, it is an optional bootloader actually. In RHEL5 it was an optional bootloader. If you want, then you can, it will give you the option that you want to install the grub, then you select the grub, and if you don't want, then deselect the grub at the time of installation. Now when you don't select the grub, then what it do, it install the basic loader that is called Linux loader, Lilo. So in RHEL5 this grub was optional, it was not compulsory also. So if you want the advanced features of grub, bootloader features, then you can select the grub, and if you don't want, then you can go for the default bootloader, that is Lilo. Lilo means Linux loader. But in RHEL 6, no Lilo, and it is no option to deselect the grub. By default it was grub, and you have to select the by default it will install the grub. And in Red Hat 7, RHEL 7, now we have grub version 2. So this is the bootloader, and the bootloader loads its configuration from the disk now. So the bootloader will do what? It will load the configuration from the disk, and it will present the user with the menu to which kernel to boot. Now we can see the bootloader directory, we can see the boot directory, boot partition, and in that we can see the grub files also. So if we want to see the grub files of this bootloader grub, now if we see df-h, so we can see the SDA1. This is the first partition, and this is the first partition, and it is mounted on /boot. And I have told you that why, because this is the first partition, it always mounted on boot. So for boot we need always the first partition. Why? Because in the boot directory we have the bootable files, and these files must be in the first partition, so that it can have an access of that first sector where it can store the bootloader file. Now when you check this directory, so you can see the booting all the booting files which is required to boot. So when you go to that directory cd/boot, and when you check, so you can see all the files required for booting, and this is what grub2. And if you want to see all the files of grub2, then we can check this grub2 directory, and this is the all configuration file for the grub2. And we can't see the bootloader file here because now it does not show up. Now this is the main configuration file for the grub, and this file indicates this file actually presents the menu for us, that which Linux you want to start. Like if we have multiple boot, we have multi-boot environment where we have multiple kernel installed in the Linux. So what it will present the list of kernels, and we have an option to choose multiple kernels. Now this is interesting in Linux. In Windows, what we do in Windows, if we want to install the multi-boot operating systems, multi-boot in the system, so what we do, we install one operating system in one partition, then we install the other operating system in other partition, then other operating system in other partition, and that is how we get the multi-boot environment. Now here in Linux we don't have to do that. If we want to have the multi-boot, then what is the meaning of multi-boot? Multi-boot means what? We want, like for example in Windows, we want Windows 10, then we want Windows Server 2016, then we want Windows Server 2012. Now what is the difference in between all these operating system, all these different operating system? Only the difference is that hardware support. That means only the kernel is different. If you see Windows 10 and if you see Windows Server 2016, both graphical interface are same. No change in graphical interface. Only the change is what? The kernel, the basic, the kernel change. The Windows 10 kernel does not support as much as hardware that Windows Server 2016 can support. Only the difference is that, nothing else. All the graphical things are same. So in Linux we don't have to install separate operating systems if we want to have multi-boot. So what we can do, we can just install the kernel. This graphical interface will remain same, and we can just install another kernels. So if we want different functionality, so we can install the different kernel into the same system. If we want another different functionality, then we add the different kernel into it. So we can install multiple kernels into a same Linux. So the graphical interface will remain same, only the kernel changes. And at the booting time, this file will present the menu that which kernel you want to start. So suppose I select kernel 1, so it will start the kernel 1, and with that kernel it will start the same graphical interface. we will get the interface, the graphical interface, the other, or even a command line interface, the shell, we will get the same shell. Then if suppose the booting time, if I select kernel 2, so it will start the kernel 2 and it will start the same shell, graphical or command line shell. So we don't have to install in multiple partitions. Like if we want to install one kernel, so we can install it in the same partition, same installation. We don't have to install the whole operating system in different partitions. We don't have to do that. So for having the multi-boot in Linux, we don't have to install the whole operating system again and again and again. We can do what? We can just install the kernel. And this file and this grub will detect all the kernels, and it will do what? It will give you it will present you the menu that which kernel we want to start. Right now by default in our RHEL 7 we have two options of kernel, and that we see when we boot the system. Let's see, I will show you, I will reboot the system and I will show you what those two options. I reboot the system. Now when the system boots, you will see the menu there. Now okay, the DVD is already selected, so I will select this. I should have removed the DVD, or I will remove the DVD. Okay, I removed the DVD. Now it will not select the DVD. So when this boot, now this is the menu. This is the menu, and it waits for only 5 seconds. Let's see again. You will see the time here, and the time is what? The 5 seconds. You can see the 5 seconds here. And if you don't stop it, and for stopping it, we can do what? We can press up and down arrow key. So when you press up and down arrow key, the timer will stop, and you will get the option to select the other kernel, or by default it will go for the first one. Now by default in this RHEL 7 we have two options of kernel. So actually we have two different kernel. One is the normal kernel, and the other one, as we can see, it is saying rescue. So if suppose in any case, suppose the first one not start, then we can start the other kernel. So the kernel, two different kernels means what? Two different operating system it is. But the graphical or command line shell, both are same. The shell will be same, but only the kernel will change. So here this is what the boot menu, and this menu is presented by that grub.conf file. That is the configuration file of grub, and that file provides the, I am starting the first one. So that file provides provide us the menu. So this bootloader do what? grub2, it loads its configuration file from the disk, and that configuration file will present the user with the menu to which kernel to boot. We can see that file, it has that menu option. So if you see the file, then you can see what it shows. I will go to grub directory, and I will show you the file. It is grub.cfg. This is the main configuration file which provides the menu. Now in this file it is having a lot of scripts here, and at the beginning it is saying do not edit this file, so we should not edit the file directly. Now you go on to see these are different script. This is setting the different menu entries settings. Like when you see the menu entry, so it is setting by these options. Now here you have the menu entry. This is the menu entry, and this is the first entry we have, and it shows this. This is what the first entry, and the second entry is here. It is the second entry. This is the second menu entry, and this is what the rescue. If you remember, it is showing this name. So this is the name it shows for the second entry. So this is the first entry, and this is the second entry, and this entry is provided by this configuration file. Now what next? Next is what? After we select the kernel from menu. So when we select either first one or second one, so it will do what? It will load the kernel file. Now kernel file name will be VM Linus. This will be the name of the kernel file, and it will load the initial RAM file system, RAM-FS, that is initial RAM-FS. This is the RAM file system, and will file from the disk. This initial RAMFS file has what is a temporary file system which contains all the required directories and drivers to boot the system. Now it is loaded into the RAM. Remember, till now we don't know that how many hard disks we what are the partitions we have. Till now we have not know, our system don't know that which files are located in which location. It only know what the first partition, and from the first partition it has only loaded the menu entry. Now when you load the menu entry, when you select the option, then it will get the option. It will know that where can it find this Linux kernel file, and also it knows that where it can find the RAMFS. So if you see the menu entry, now when you see the menu entry, for example, if I select this option to start, so it will start with these other options. These are the options with this kernel menu. And what it says here, it loads the videos, it loads the gzips, it loads the part MS-DOS, it loads the XFS file system. Then here it is setting the root file system, root partition actually. And it's saying that root partition is under HD0. HD0, that means the first disk. And from the first disk, MS-DOS 1, that is the first partition. That means here it is setting that where to get and where to load all the bootable files. So all the bootable files are loading from where? So it is loading all the bootable files from first hard disk of first partition of the first hard disk, because we have installed the operating system, this one, into the first disk and the first partition of that disk. That is what it is mounted on boot/boot. So we know that our first partition is mounted on what? /boot. And this is boot, and under the boot it is having all the bootable files. So it decides here that what is the first partition and what is the hard disk where we have installed operating system, or where it can get the installation file. Now if suppose someone edited this file, remember for that it is saying in the first line, do not edit this file. So if someone edited this file and if someone changes the name SD0 to SD1, then it is failed to find the operating system, and you will get the error that file not found. Now in RHEL 6, if you change this, you will get the error, but here it will not get the error. It can still start the system because it has this script here, and this script it is having the if loop here. It says if it is not finding this here, then it is having also these options, that setting the root file system. Again here you can see it is setting this or checking this. So it will check all these options, and at the final, if it is not finding anything, it will check the UUID also. So anyhow it is going to get the first boot for the partition, otherwise it will get error. Now after setting the partition, that where it can get the bootable files, so first it will load the Linux kernel file, and the name of the file is this VM Linux with all the versions and architecture. And it can download the file, it can load the file from this, and this is the kernel file. So it loads the kernel file, and also we can see here with the kernel file it has some options also. This is some of the options. By default it is there, like it is giving the root ID, it is setting a read only, crash check kernel is auto set to auto, RHGB quiet, that means Red Hat graphical boot is set to quiet. That is why when this the system boots, we don't see anything, we see only the loading window, and then it starts the system because it is set here that quiet. Language is set to this. Now this is some of the option, but we can set many options here with the kernel which we want to boot with the kernel. Like we can set the IP addresses, we can configure the firewall, enable, disable, and many other settings we can add here. And then after Linux kernel, then it will load this initial RAMFS file, and this file is also here, init RAMFS file, and this is also available in the same directory, and we can see this here. And if suppose we select the other mode, other kernel, other menu entry, if you select the other menu entry here, this rescue 1. So it will do what? It will do these things, set the boot partition, and then it will load this kernel, rescue kernel, and this is also available here in the same boot directory. And for that it load this initial ramfs, that is for rescue, and that is also available here in the same directory. Now what this ramfs do? It is actually the file system for RAM. Remember, every storage system, every storage device need what? The file system. So it actually do what? It loads the file system into RAM. File system means all the directories which is required to install the operating system. Like these are the directories like boot, etc, run directory. This is very important, run directory. So these all directories it loads all these file system into RAM, and it comes from this initial ramfs. This file do what? It loads all the file system into the RAM, and because it is in RAM, it is temporary. So it loaded the temporary file system which contains all the required directories and drivers to boot the system. Then the bootloader will pass the control to kernel with any options specified the kernel command. So remember, with the kernel we have multiple options. Right now we have only few options, but we can add multiple options. So whatever options we have, it will pass the control to the kernel, and kernel will start with those options. Now from here kernel will take over, and now the kernel will do its job. Now the kernel will do what? The kernel initializes all the hardware for which it can find drivers in initial ramfs. So the file system which booted with the initial ramfs, so it will find all the basic drivers there to start the basic hardware. Then it will execute the first process, system D, with the PID 1. Then what it do? It initializes the first process, that is what? System D. Now this system D's job is to initialize the system. Now this is the difference we have in RHEL 7 and RHEL 6. In RHEL 6 it was init. It was init who do the initialization, but now it is done by the system D. So now it is done by the system D, and when we check the process, which process is the first process, so we can see that the process ID 1 is for the system D. When we check the process by using the ps command, and I will go for less, so we can see here the first process is what? System D. And if I use the full, so we can see the first process is what? System D, and the system D is executed by 0. Process ID 0, that means it is executed by the kernel, and kernel also executes this kernel threading for hardware drivers. It loads all the drivers of hardware and then execute it. Then after this nothing will be run by kernel. You can see only these two is run by kernel. Then system D will take over. Then the system D executes all the units from initrd.target file. Now in Linux, in this system D, why it using system D now? Why it is not using init? Because in init it was a slow boot. It slow boots because it do what? It goes by the steps. Like it runs first it runs this service, then it runs the next service, then it runs the next service, then next, number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. But this system D can do what? It can run simultaneously multiple process and services. If suppose the dependencies for that process or service is completed, then it will start the process without waiting for the sequence. So it do what? It can run multiple process simultaneously, and that is why the system D can start the system quickly than the init system. So init system, init will take a little time to start, but the system D can start the system very quickly. So that is why now in RHEL 7 we have system D now. So system D what? System D has units. It has a different units. The units are two main units it has. One is .target and the other one is .services. .targets are having the configuration information and .service are the services. So it started the dot target here, which is init dot target, and this will also load our main file system under the sysroot. Now remember, our main file system it is not loaded. We don't know what partitions and what files we have. So it loads what the main file system under this sysroot, and this sysroot directory is under the initial ramfs. So the temporary file system is there, and under the temporary file system it loads it creates one directory called sysroot, and in that sysroot directory it mounts our real file system, original file system. Now the root file system is switched from init ramfs file system to our main file system. This is configured in fs tab. So it is configured in fs tab. Remember, all the partitions which is mounted on which directory is defined under the fs tab file. Now till now we don't know where is the fs tab file, but after loading the file system into our main file system into sysroot, now our kernel is having the access of this fs tab file. So it checks the fs tab file, and then it loads our main file system, and it will remove the temporary file system from there. Then it will check, the systemd will look for the default dot target. Now remember, dot target is for the configurations. So dot target is what? Under the etc systemd system directory. This is the directory where all the target and services files are there, which we want to execute when the system boots. But for that, first it checks the default dot target. Now this default dot target, in this directory it decides to boot, decides the mode our system will boot, either in CLI or graphical. So this target says that whether it is going to boot the graphical or command line. So we can see that here. So the systemd, when the systemd comes, so what it do, it will see the file which is under etc systemd system directory, and under that directory we have all the targets and services file which we want to execute when the system starts. Now dot target means what? The configuration files, and the dot services are the services file for the services. Now these are small scripts, these are simple scripts. If you check the file, if you open the file, these are simple scripts like how to run and after which it will run. Like for example, this is the default dot target. So if we check this file, init ram the systemd is going to check this file first. So systemd system, and under that we have default dot target. Now these target files are the small scripts, we can say. And now this default dot target, this is the first file it will check, and this file will decide that whether it is going to boot CLI or graphical. So if you check this file, it is a small unit, it is a simple unit file. This is the description. Now under the description we can say that this is what? Graphical interface. That means our system, whenever we boot the system, it goes into graphical. And this is the documentation you will find here, and what it requires. This is the dependency for this target, and the dependency is to have multi-user dot target first, and it is it wants the display manager service to run first, and it is also conflicting with the rescue dot service and rescue dot target. This rescue dot service and rescue dot target is actually the safe mode. So if our system is going into safe mode, then the graphical will not start, and it will only start after these targets and services. And also it can be isolated. This is isolated, yes. So this is the simple script. It says that what is required for this target, what are the confliction, and also what it will start after which targets. So this is saying graphical, that means our system boots into graphical. Now after deciding this graphical or CLI by checking this default dot target, so then what? Now according of this default dot target, systemd will start running all the units, that means dot targets and dot services, to initialize the system. And after all these users will be presented with the login screen, and then we can see that our system is started. And where it finds these dot targets and dot services, it is in the same directory. So all the dot targets and services which it requires by this default dot target, it is under the same directory we have. Under the same directory we have all these things here. So it will start this all required by this default dot target, and it will start all of them, and then after all these services and targets are executed, we will see what the login screen, and then we can log in. So this is how our Linux system boots. Very simple. So this is how it boots, and this is our system D's job is to boot the system. Now if you want to see the boot messages, like what happened till in the last boot, then we can check the D message command. We can run this command to check the all logs of the last boot. When you run this, it shows all the options, what happened when we boot the system. So this is the last boot options, last boot logs. And from here, if I grab system D, so we can see what system D has done. So from here it has started, then it detected that the virtualization is there because it is a virtual machine. It detected the architecture, running the initial RAM disk, set the host name, create the slices, starting the slices. That means it will run the program and processes simultaneously. So it do the slicing, listen, control, start the timer, reach the target swap, listing the journal socket, and all these things it is done by this. Then it says the signal to PDI1, termination signal to PDI1, successfully load SE Linux policies, inserted the module of IP table, relabeled, and then receives the signal to flash. Then it will flash the PID1, and then finally our system is started. Now this D message command will show you the logs of booting. It is actually a log where you can see this under this directory, where log directory. Under the where log directory you can see the D message, and where is it? It is here. This is the current boot record logs, and this is the previous boot record. Now next time when I boot, so this one will become .old and it will create new file. So when you run the DMSH command, then it will do what? It will show you the current log, and which is coming from this file. This is our current, and the previous boot logs are here. So we can also see these logs for the troubleshooting of our boot. So this is how our system boots and initialize. Now it uses system D, previously it uses the init. System D can do what? It can run fast, it can run and execute the simultaneous process. So this is our boot process of RHEL 7.